Yes guys, welcome back to another video where we basically teach how to lose fat for long-term sustainability rather than dropping the weight quickly and then putting it back on within the next 12 months. So what we're going to cover today is how sleep affects your fat loss and basically how to improve it so you can get the best out of what you're doing. Now if you feel like you are doing everything right but there's still something missing that isn't ticking over, then it may possibly be your sleep that is affecting your fat loss. So in this video, we are going to uncover what basically could be affecting it, how to improve it, and what steps you need to take going forward to improve your sleep. But first of all, let's go into how there is actually a connection with sleep and fat loss. So if your scale weight isn't moving, you're probably hitting the gym, eating in a calorie deficit, and doing everything right, but the scale weight isn't moving. So poor sleep could actually be the hidden culprit behind why it's not moving. You will possibly, if you are getting bad sleep, you can be feeling hungry all the time, you can be feeling tired and unmotivated to actually do anything, which is obviously during a day-to-day basis going to hold you back from putting as much energy out as possible. So despite your efforts, your sleep quality may obviously be stalling your progress. And if you are obviously doing everything right, so tracking your steps, tracking your diet, and it doesn't seem to be working, then like I say, sleep could be your missing key to getting where you want to be. So let's go into how sleep actually does affect your fat loss. Now, if you have lack of sleep, then it will massively increase your hunger and cravings. So low amount of sleep will increase your hunger hormone and decrease your fullness hormone. So making you a lot more hungry and more likely to crave, anything really. But obviously if you are craving it, you are likely to going to binge in it and then obviously overconsume in your calories. It does also slow down your fat loss. So studies have shown that when obviously you are dieting, people who sleep for less than 8 hours per day are more likely to store fat than those who only sleep 5 to 6 hours per day. So even though you may be on the same amount of calories, you obviously may not be putting out as much energy on a daily basis, and therefore not in as high of a calorie deficit as what you would be if you had more energy to put out. It also lowers willpower and motivation. So when you're tired, when you're not feeling up for it, you're less likely to actually have that sort of drive and discipline to get up and get going. Obviously, which will lead to skip workouts, not doing as many steps throughout the day, and quite simply just lack of kind of the willpower to do anything throughout the day. So how much sleep do you actually need? So general rule of thumb is 7 to 9 hours per day for high quality sleep. If you are having anything less than 6 hours per night, then it could lead to a disaster within your fat loss journey. Now it's all good and well saying, you need 9 hours of, 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day. But what you want to try and focus on is quality sleep rather than quantity. So what I mean by this is trying to get into a deep sleep. So bad sleep quality produces the same sort of negative effects as not sleeping enough. So you do need to have deep sleep throughout the night as well. So here is basically a step-by-step of how to fix your sleep. So first of all, set up a sleep schedule. So try and get into a nice little routine of knowing what you're doing, when you're doing it, just so your body kind of knows it's sleep time. So you can get into, like I say, a nice little routine of what you are doing. You also want to create a wind down routine. So 30 to 60 minutes before bed, make sure you have no sort of screens. If you do, use something like blue light blocker glasses. Obviously try and reduce stress. If you are wanting to read, obviously it will just kind of bring you down on a level. And then have sort of a dark environment, to dim the lights, and obviously try and keep the room as dark as possible. You also want to limit caffeine and alcohol intake, so try and avoid caffeine for at least 6 to 8 hours before bed. So if you are an evening trainer, just be a bit wary if you are taking any sort of pre-workout, any sort of stimulants before your sessions. Just be a bit careful with that and try and align it with obviously your evening routine before you go to sleep. Try and get your room as a nice little sleeping environment. So if you are, like I say, trying to keep the room as dark as possible, get some blackout curtains and keep it at a nice temperature so you're not obviously just like there tossing and turning, overheating at night. And try and get into a good routine of moving quite a bit throughout the day as well. So if you are obviously in a calorie deficit, you are going to be naturally tired anyway. So if you are moving quite a bit throughout the day, then when it does come to obviously going to sleep, you are going to go to sleep. So common sleep myths that you may have heard and mistakes along with it. So I'll catch up on sleep later. So sleep debt doesn't necessarily work that way. You can't fully make up for lack of sleep. So consistent sleep patterns are essential for fat loss. So like I mentioned before, if you are obviously having like a disturbed sleep, it's not necessarily as good as having a consistent sleep all the way through the night. I function fine off 5 hours sleep. Now, a lot of people think they're fine and actually can function well off it, which I know a lot of people that do tend to have just short amount of sleep. But same again, performance does suffer slightly. So your body and your brain are likely operating at a reduced capacity to what its full capability is. More sleep is always better. So, quite a lot of the times, if you have a lot of sleep, you do feel more tired than what you do if you've had little sleep. One thing that this may suggest is you are getting poor quality sleep. So if you are sleeping 10 hours plus and you're still feeling tired, you need to look at ways of potentially how you can get into some deep sleeps. But like I say, it does suggest that you're not getting the best possible sleep, and there may be underlying health issues that could impact your fat loss as well. Sleep aids are a good solution. Now, many sleep medications disrupt natural sleep cycles and can lead to dependence. So, if you are relying purely on sleeping tablets, if you've got any sort of sprays that help you sleep, it could quite simply, you could become reliant on. So, if for example you go away for a week, go away for a couple of days and you don't take it with you, it's more in your mind that you're not going to have the best sort of sleep possible because you're relying on the stimulants that help you sleep. So same as anything else really, what I want you to try and do is put a plan together so you can actually get good quality sleep. So try and aim for around 7 to 9 hours per day. So if you obviously have a morning routine, try and obviously plan it before that. Plan what sort of time you need to go to bed and try and put in a little pre-bed routine before. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, improving your sleep could also be the breakthrough you'd need to help assist with your fat loss goals. Like I said, rest and recovery is one of the most important things. So if you are, like I say, in a calorie deficit, you are going to be naturally tired. So if you are not taking full opportunity within your sleep to recover and rest, then like I say, you could be leaving the results within your fat loss on the table. If you do struggle with your fat loss goals, getting enough sleep and trying to understand what you actually need to do, look at the description. There's going to be a link for a 5-day free fat loss course what you can join. Quite simply, just click on that, fill your details in, and it'll get sent straight over to you.